3 of us went into the elevator on Sunday, April 12th, and 2 of us came back. The one who didn't come back was my brother-in-law, Derek. And the thing that's sitting in his living room right now wearing his face and watching his TV and eating dinner with my sister and her kids is not him. I know it's not him. My sister knows it's not him. Her children know it's not him. And none of us can do a single thing about it because you can't call the police and say this man is an imposter when he has the right fingerprints and the right dental records and the right memories and the right laugh. And the only thing wrong with him is a quality so subtle and so absolute that the English language doesn't have a word for it. He came back wrong. Not broken, not empty, not evil. Wrong, in the way a mirror image is wrong. Everything reversed along an axis you can't point to. I need to tell this in order. Not because order matters, but because if I don't hold on to the sequence, I'll start talking about what happened in the elevator, and I'm not ready for that yet. I need to walk up to it. I need the hallway before the door. My name is Casey Purcell. I'm 27. I'm a respiratory therapist at Crittenden County Memorial Hospital in West Memphis, Arkansas, which sits on the flat Mississippi River plain about 15 minutes from the Tennessee border, right where Arkansas stops pretending it isn't the Delta and commits to being mud and cotton and catfish restaurants and Baptist churches, and a particular quality of humidity that lives in your clothes like a second skin from April to October. Crittenden County Memorial is a 94-bed community hospital that serves a population of about 48,000 people across one of the poorest counties in a poor state. It's not a place you end up because of ambition. It's a place you end up because it's home, or because it's close to home, or because the job was open and you needed a job. I grew up in Marion, 10 miles northwest. My mother is a teacher's aide. My father drove a FedEx route out of the Memphis hub until his back gave out. I went to Arkansas State for my associates, got my RRT credential, and came back because my sister Janelle had just had her second baby and was dealing with postpartum depression, and I wanted to be close. That's the kind of decision that defines a life without you realizing it. You make it for love, and then the gravity sets in, and 5 years later, you're still in the same county and the same apartment and the same Sunday dinners and the same job, and you're not unhappy exactly, but you're aware that the shape of your life was set by a single choice, and everything since has been fill. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you need to understand who I am in relation to the people around me. Because this story is about those people. My sister, her husband, our friends, our co-workers. And the thing that happened to us as a group, not to me alone in a dark building. To us, on a Sunday afternoon, in a hospital full of people, in broad daylight. The hospital has a basement level. Every hospital does. This one is called B level on the elevator panel, and it houses the usual things: medical record storage, the mechanical plant, some overflow supply rooms, and the old cafeteria that was decommissioned in 2014 when they built the new one on the first floor. B level is accessible by a single elevator in the east wing and by a stairwell at the far end of the north corridor. Staff go down there all the time. Maintenance, records clerks, and anyone who needs supplies from the overflow cages. It's not restricted. It's not locked. It's a basement. On Sundays, it's different. I should explain what I mean by that, and I should explain how I learned what I mean by that, and the answer to both is Claudette Morris. Claudette has worked at Crittenden County Memorial for 31 years. She's a patient care tech on the med-surg floor. She's 63. She has grandchildren in the hospital daycare, and a voice like gravel soaked in honey. And she is the person who actually runs the second floor regardless of what the org chart says. When I started at the hospital 5 years ago, Claudette was the one who oriented me. Not formally. The formal orientation was a 2-day PowerPoint marathon run by HR. Claudette's orientation was a 10-minute conversation in the break room on my first real shift. 3 things she said, holding up fingers. First, the vending machine in the East Wing takes your money half the time, so bring your own snacks. Second, Dr. Reddick is a good doctor, but he doesn't listen. So if you see something wrong, tell the charge nurse, not him. Third, on Sundays, don't go to B-level. Why not? Because on Sundays, the elevator goes somewhere else. She said it the same way she'd said the thing about the vending machine. Same tone, same volume, same face. Like it was a piece of practical information that would make my work life easier, filed between snack strategy and physician management. What do you mean somewhere else? I mean what I said. Monday through Saturday, the elevator goes to B-level and B-level is B-level and everything is normal. On Sundays, the elevator goes to B-level and B-level is not B-level. It looks the same, it smells the same, but it's not the same. And if you go down there on a Sunday, you might come back different. Different how? Claudette looked at me for a long time. She has these eyes. Dark brown, very steady. The eyes of someone who has seen enough that surprise has become a luxury she can't afford. Different the way left is different from right, she said. You know it's wrong, but you can't prove it. That was it. She went back to her rounds. I went to mine. And for 5 years, I didn't go to B-level on Sundays. Here's the thing, though. It's not just Claudette. That's what I need you to understand. If it were just Claudette, one older woman with a superstition, a piece of hospital folklore like the haunted ICU room or the ghost in the parking garage, I could have filed it away and forgotten it. But it's not just Claudette. It's at least a dozen people, maybe more. I learned this gradually, the way you learn anything in a workplace. Through fragments, asides, break room conversations that curve toward a subject and then veer away from it. Terry in radiology told me she'd been warned by her predecessor. Marcus, one of the security guards, said his training officer had told him to stay topside on the Lord's Day. Priya on the NICU mentioned it once and then changed the subject so fast I got conversational whiplash. Nobody talks about it directly. Nobody sits you down and explains it. There's no memo, no policy, no sign on the elevator. There's just a network of people. Mostly long-timers, mostly support staff, mostly the kind of workers who are invisible to the doctors and the administration, who know that something is different about B-level on Sundays, and who pass that knowledge along through the only channel available to them, which is each other. And the administration knows too. I'm almost certain of it, because every Sunday the B-level elevator is under maintenance. Every single Sunday. The sign goes up Saturday night and comes down Monday morning. A laminated sign faded from years of use that reads, "Elevator out of service. Routine maintenance. Use stairs for B-level access." And the stairwell? The stairwell at the far end of the North Corridor? It's locked on Sundays. Has been for as long as anyone can remember. The lock is a heavy-duty padlock on a hasp that someone welded onto the fire door, which is itself a code violation that the fire marshal apparently does not care about, which tells you something about how deep the knowledge goes in this county. So on Sundays, B-level is inaccessible. The elevator is out of service. The stairs are locked. Nobody goes down. Whatever is different about the basement on the 7th day stays contained by the simple mechanism of a laminated sign and a padlock and a network of people who don't talk about why. I accepted this for 5 years. I accepted it the way I accept that my car makes a sound when I turn left and the washing machine in my apartment skips the rinse cycle if you don't kick it. You adapt. You route around the problem. You don't go to B-level on Sundays. It's easy. It costs nothing. And the alternative? Questioning it, testing it, investigating it. The alternative costs something, and I didn't know how much until Derek decided to find out. Derek Washburn, my sister Janelle's husband, 32 years old, former Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan, now working as a facilities manager at the hospital. He'd been hired in January, 3 months before this happened. He got the job because the previous facilities manager, a man named Gil Overby, who'd held the position for 19 years, had retired abruptly in December, and the hospital needed someone who could handle mechanical systems, building maintenance, HVAC, plumbing. The physical guts of a building that was constructed in 1974 and has been patched and repatched ever since. Derek was good at the job. He was good at most things. He was the kind of man who radiated capability, who walked into a room and made you feel like the room's problems were about to be solved. Tall, broad, quick hands, quicker mind. He'd done mechanical work in the Army, and he'd done a year of trade school after discharge, and he could diagnose a failing compressor by sound the way I can diagnose a failing lung. He and Janelle had been married 6 years. Their kids, Deshaun and Maya, were 5 and 3. I loved Derek. I want that to be clear. Not past tense because of death. He's alive. Or the thing with his name is alive. Past tense because the person I loved is not retrievable. I loved him because he made my sister laugh. Because he coached Deshaun's t-ball team. Because he came to every Sunday dinner at my mother's house and did the dishes without being asked and called my mother Miss Linda, even though she'd told him 100 times to call her Linda. Derek did not accept the Sunday rule. He'd been warned, same as everyone. Claudette told him his first week. Marcus told him. I told him myself, in Janelle's kitchen, on a Sunday evening after dinner, while the kids watched Bluey in the next room. The elevator thing? He said. Casey, come on. I'm serious. You're serious that a hospital elevator goes to a different dimension on Sundays? I didn't say a different dimension. I said B-level is different on Sundays. Different how? Specifically? What exactly is different? I don't know. I've never gone down. Has anyone you know gone down? People have gone down. Some of them came back fine. Some of them came back different. Different how? And I gave him Claudette's answer, because it was the only answer I had. Different the way left is different from right. He looked at me with that expression. The expression of a competent, practical man confronting a belief system that has no engineering behind it. Not contempt. Derek was never contemptuous, but a kind of gentle structural incredulity. The look of someone who takes things apart for a living and is being asked to believe in something that can't be disassembled. Casey, I manage that building. The mechanical plant is on B level. The HVAC units, the boilers, the electrical switchgear. It's all down there. I need access 7 days a week. I can't just skip Sundays because of a rumor. It's not a rumor. It's not verified either. Nobody can tell me what's actually down there. Nobody can describe the difference. It's just different. That's not information. That's a vibe. I didn't argue further. Derek wasn't the kind of person you argued into belief. He was the kind of person who needed to see the data. He started going to B-level on Sundays. The first time was in late February. He removed the maintenance sign from the elevator, used his master key to bypass the lockout, and rode down. He was gone for 20 minutes. He came back, walked to his office, sat down and texted me. Went to B-level. It's a basement. Boilers, storage, old cafeteria. Exactly what it looks like every other day. Your people are superstitious. I texted back, don't do it again. He did it again, the next Sunday, and the Sunday after that. Each time he went down, did his rounds, checked the mechanical systems, came back up. Nothing happened. Nothing was different. He reported this to me with increasing confidence and decreasing patience, and I watched him report it. And I felt something that I couldn't name. Not relief that he was fine. Not vindication that the story was false, but a growing unease that had no logical basis and no rational defense. Claudette noticed. Your brother-in-law's going downstairs on Sundays. she said to me in the break room on a Wednesday. Not a question. He's the facilities manager. He says he needs access. Gil Overby was the facilities manager for 19 years and he never went down on a Sunday. Derek isn't Gil. No, he isn't. She stirred her coffee. How many times has he gone? 3, I think. Has he taken anyone with him? No, he goes alone. She looked at me with those steady eyes. The ones who come back different. They always go alone. The elevator does something different when there's only one person in it. What does it do? I don't know. I've never gone alone. You've gone? On a Sunday? Once, 1997. There were 4 of us. Me, a nurse named Deidre, and 2 maintenance men. We went down because a pipe had burst and there was water flooding record storage and it was a Sunday. And we didn't have a choice. We rode down together. B level was B level. We fixed the pipe. We rode back up. Nothing happened. So it's fine if you go with people? I didn't say fine. I said nothing happened to us. But Deidre went back the next Sunday, alone, to check the pipe. She said she wanted to make sure the fix was holding. Claudette paused. She came back in about 10 minutes. She was the same. She looked the same, talked the same, worked the same. But she wasn't the same. How do you know? Because Deidre was left-handed, and the woman who came back from that elevator was right-handed. Same name, same face, same memories, same everything. But she picked up a pen with her right hand and wrote with it like she'd been doing it her whole life. And when I asked her about it, she said, "I've always been right-handed, Claudette." And she believed it. She genuinely believed it. And nobody else noticed because nobody else was paying attention to which hand Deidre used to write. That could be... It could be anything. I know. It could be a nerve issue, a stroke, a psychological thing. But it wasn't, Casey. It was Deidre but not Deidre. Reversed. Like a photograph flipped. And she worked here for another 8 years, and she was a good nurse. And she was kind and professional, and she was not the woman I knew. She was close. She was so close that if I hadn't been watching for it, I never would have seen it. I told Derek about Deidre. He listened politely. Then he said, "A woman switched hands and your coworker decided it was a dimensional anomaly instead of, I don't know, a medical event. Casey, this is how folklore works. Something mundane happens. Someone fits it into an existing narrative, and the story grows." Then why does the hospital lock the stairwell every Sunday? Why the maintenance sign? Liability management. The basement has known electrical issues. I've flagged 3 in my first 2 months. Maybe someone got shocked on a Sunday years ago, and legal told them to restrict access on low staff days. It doesn't have to be supernatural. What about the padlock welded to the fire door? That's a code violation. He paused at that. Yeah, that's weird. I've actually put in a work order to have it removed. Don't. Casey. Derek, please, for me, for Janelle, stop going down there on Sundays. He looked at me and I could see him weighing it. The rationale against the relational, the data against the people who were asking him to ignore the data, and I could see which side was winning because Derek was Derek and data always won. "One more time," he said. "But I'll bring people. You said it's safe with a group, right? Claudette went with the group and nothing happened. So I'll bring people. I'll document everything, cameras, measurements, whatever. We'll go down, we'll see that it's a normal basement. And then everyone can stop being afraid." That was how the 4 of us ended up in the East Wing elevator on Sunday, April 12th, at 2:15 in the afternoon. Derek, me, Janelle, and our friend Thomas Reyes, who worked as a phlebotomist on the 3rd floor, and who had volunteered because he said he'd heard the stories and wanted to see for himself, and also because, he admitted, the idea of a haunted basement was the most interesting thing to happen in this building since the vending machine fire of 2023. Thomas was 29, originally from Pine Bluff, and he was the kind of person who made every group better by being in it. Funny, steady, unflappable. He'd drawn my blood once during a routine employee health screening, and I'd barely felt the needle, and I'd thought, this is a person whose hands know how to be gentle. He and Derek got along well. He and Janelle got along well. He and I had a comfortable, warm thing that was either a close friendship or the early stages of something more. And neither of us had named it yet, because naming things is how you make them fragile. 4 of us. A group. Claudette said groups were safe. The elevator was a standard hospital elevator. Stainless steel walls, handrails, a panel with buttons for floors 1 through 4 and B. Derek had removed the maintenance sign. He pressed B. The doors closed. Fluorescent light, the hum of the motor, the slight lurch as the car began to descend. Everything normal. Everything exactly like every other elevator ride I'd taken in this building for 5 years. Then Janelle said, "Is it always this slow?" She was right. The descent was slow, not mechanically. I've ridden in slow elevators, and this wasn't that. It was the kind of slow that you feel in your inner ear before your brain registers it, like time had thickened slightly. Like the distance between the first floor and the basement had stretched by a factor I couldn't calculate, and the elevator was traveling at normal speed through a space that had become abnormally long. "Old equipment," Derek said. "The motor needs servicing." Thomas caught my eye. He wasn't smiling anymore. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. B-level. It looked like B-level. That's what I want to emphasize. It looked exactly, precisely, photographically like B-level on every other day of the week. The hallway extended in both directions. Left toward the mechanical plant, right toward record storage and the old cafeteria. Fluorescent lights overhead, half of them working, casting that sick greenish tint that old fluorescents get when the ballasts are dying. Linoleum floor, scuffed and yellowed. Exposed pipes along the ceiling, painted the same institutional beige they'd been painted in 1974. The smell, that underground smell of damp concrete and old paper and the metallic tang of electrical equipment. Everything the same, and everything wrong. I couldn't point to the wrongness. I still can't. If you'd shown me photographs of B-level on a Wednesday and B-level on that Sunday, I would not have been able to identify a single difference. But standing there in the hallway, in my body, with my senses taking in the totality of the space, I knew. The way you know when someone's behind you in a room. The way you know when a phone is about to ring. A knowledge that lives below the part of your brain that deals in evidence. "See?" Derek said. "Basement." He stepped out of the elevator. Janelle followed. Tomas and I looked at each other. "Feel that?" Tomas said quietly. "Yeah." "What is that?" "I don't know." We stepped out. The 4 of us stood in the hallway, and B-level was B-level, and I was afraid in a way I had never been afraid before. Not the sharp fear of danger, but the deep, disorienting fear of wrongness, of fundamental misalignment, of standing in a room that matches every specification of a room you know, and being certain, in your cells, that it is not that room. Derek was already walking left, toward the mechanical plant. "I'm going to check the boilers. You guys can look around if you want. I'll be 10 minutes. "We should stay together," I said. He turned back. "Casey, it's a basement. We should stay together." Something in my voice got through. Not the words. The sound. The register. Derek had been in combat. He knew what fear sounded like when it was real, when it wasn't about spiders or scary movies, but about the genuine assessment of threat by a nervous system that predated language. He looked at me and he heard it, and for the first time, I saw doubt cross his face. "Okay," he said. "We stay together." We walked left, 4 of us, together, through the hallway toward the mechanical plant, past the door to record storage, past the supply cages with their chain-link fronts and their shelves of expired inventory. Everything the same, everything wrong. Thomas said, "The lights are backwards." We stopped. "What?" Derek said. "The lights. Look at the fixtures. On a normal day, the third one from the elevator is the burnt-out one. I come down here for supply runs. I know which light is dead. It's the third one from the elevator on the left side. But right now, the third one on the left side is fine. The dead one is the third one on the right side." We looked. He was right. The fluorescent tube that should have been dark was lit. The one on the opposite side, which should have been lit, was dark. "Reversed," Janelle said, quietly, like she was afraid the word would be heard. "A bulb burned out and another one got replaced," Derek said. "Maintenance rotates stock. This is what I'm talking about. You're looking for patterns in normal variation." "Nobody replaced a bulb," Tomas said. "I was down here Friday. The third one on the left was dead Friday." Derek didn't respond to that. He kept walking. We followed. The mechanical plant was at the end of the hallway, through a set of double doors with wired glass windows. Derek pushed through and we entered a large room filled with the building's guts. 2 industrial boilers, the main electrical switchgear, banks of air handlers, a maze of ductwork overhead. Derek moved through it with the confidence of familiarity, checking gauges, touching pipes, reading the mechanical language of the building the way I read a patient's breath sounds. "Everything's nominal," he said. "Same as every other Sunday I've been down here." "Derek," Janelle said. She was standing near the far wall by the electrical panel. "Come look at this." We went to her. She was pointing at the panel. A large steel box mounted on the wall, about 4 feet wide, with a hinged door that opened to reveal rows of circuit breakers. The door was open. The breakers were labeled with a strip of masking tape next to each one, identifying the circuit: lighting north, core, lighting S, core, HVAC unit 2, cafeteria, etc. The labels were backwards, not reversed in order, reversed in text, mirror written. Every label was a perfect mirror image of what it should have said, as if someone had written them while looking at the panel in a mirror, or as if the panel itself was a reflection. Derek stared at it. I watched him stare at it. I watched the competence in his face run into something it couldn't assemble, couldn't solve, couldn't take apart and put back together. He reached out and touched one of the labels, ran his finger across the masking tape. "I wrote these labels," he said, 2 weeks ago. I relabeled the whole panel because the old labels were illegible. I wrote these. This is my handwriting." It was his handwriting. I could see that. The blocky all-caps print that Derek used for everything, the same hand that wrote grocery lists on the notepad on Janelle's refrigerator. His handwriting, mirrored. "We should go back up," I said. "Hold on. Derek, we should go back up now." He closed the panel. He turned around, and then he stopped, and I saw his face change, and I turned to see what he was seeing. At the far end of the mechanical plant, past the boilers, there was a door that didn't exist on weekdays. I knew the layout of B-level. Not as well as Derek, but well enough. I'd been down here dozens of times for supply runs. The mechanical plant had one entrance, the double doors we'd come through. That was it. One way in, one way out. But now there was a second door, on the far wall. A plain institutional door, painted beige with a lever handle, and it was open about 2 inches. And through the gap, I could see light. Not fluorescent light. Warmer, softer. The color of afternoon sun through a window. "That's not possible," Derek said. "There's nothing behind that wall. That wall is the foundation. That's the south exterior wall. Behind it is 6 feet of concrete and then dirt. Don't open it, I said. But Thomas was already walking toward it. Not with curiosity, with recognition, like he was seeing something he'd been told about, something that matched a description he'd received, and he was verifying. Tomas. He reached the door. He didn't open it further. He leaned close to the gap, the 2-inch gap, and he looked through. He stood there for about 5 seconds. Then he stepped back and his face was the color of the concrete walls and he said, "We need to leave, right now. Don't argue. We need to leave." Nobody argued. We walked back through the mechanical plant, through the double doors, down the hallway toward the elevator. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The exposed pipes ran along the ceiling. The linoleum was scuffed and yellowed, and the same and wrong, and we walked fast, all 4 of us, not running because running felt like it would trigger something, like the wrongness was a predator that responded to flight. The elevator was where we'd left it, doors open, fluorescent interior. We got in. Derek pressed one. The doors closed. We rose, slowly, that same temporal thickness, that stretched distance. But we rose. The doors opened on the first floor, the east wing hallway. Normal light, normal sound, the distant beep of a monitor, a phone ringing at the nurse's station, the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on tile, the living, working Sunday afternoon reality of a hospital full of people. I looked at Derek. I looked at Janelle. I looked at Tomas. They looked like themselves. They sounded like themselves. We walked to the break room and sat down and nobody spoke for a while. And then Derek said, "I don't know what that was." And his voice was wrong. Not different, not reversed, just shaken. The voice of a man whose confidence has been cracked in a place he can't patch. And Janelle took his hand, and Tomas took mine, and we sat there. "What did you see?" I asked Tomas. "Through the door." He shook his head. "Tomas, I saw the hospital," he said. "Through the gap, I could see a hallway. It looked like the first floor. Same tile, same walls, same everything. But there were people in it. Staff, patients in wheelchairs. A normal hospital day. And they were all..." He stopped. He pressed his palms against his eyes. "They were all moving wrong. Left feet where right feet should be, reaching with the wrong hands. One woman was walking and her gait was. Her legs were moving in the right pattern but mirrored, like she was a reflection of a person walking. And there were names on the wall, department signs, and they were all backwards," Janelle said. "Mirrored, everything mirrored. And one of the people in the hallway turned and looked at the door, looked right at the gap, looked at me, and she had my face." Nobody spoke. "Not like a twin," Thomas said, "like a mirror. My face, but reversed. The scar on my right cheek was on her left cheek. The part in my hair was on the wrong side." She looked at me and she smiled and she started walking toward the door. "That's when you said we had to leave." "That's when I said we had to leave." 2 weeks passed. Nothing happened. The 4 of us didn't talk about it. Not because we agreed not to. Because we couldn't. Every time I tried to bring it up, the words felt slippery, inadequate, like trying to describe a color to someone who's never seen it. What would I say? The basement was mirrored? The labels were backwards? There was a door that shouldn't exist? It sounded like nothing. It sounded like a group of people who got scared in a basement and projected meaning onto mundane details. But the details weren't mundane. And the feeling, that bone-deep wrongness, that cellular certainty, didn't fade. It settled into me. It settled into all of us. And it settled into Derek differently than the rest of us. He went quiet, not silent. He still talked, still laughed, still showed up to Sunday dinners and coached t-ball and did the dishes. But the quality of his attention changed. He would look at things too long. Ordinary things. A doorknob, a light switch, a printed sign. He'd look at them with that expression I'd seen in the mechanical plant. The competent man confronting something he couldn't assemble. And then he'd look away and be normal again, and I'd wonder if I was imagining it. I wasn't imagining it, Janelle confirmed. He's reading backwards, she told me on the phone, late on a Tuesday night, her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. I caught him in the kitchen reading a cereal box, and he was holding it up to the mirror over the sink. I asked him what he was doing, and he said nothing and put it down. But he'd been standing there for 5 minutes, reading the cereal box in the mirror. Has he gone back to B-level? I don't know. I asked him not to. He said he wouldn't. But Casey, he's writing things. In his workshop. He's got a notebook, and he's writing. And when I looked at it, the writing was backwards. Mirror script. Pages and pages of it. He said it was just doodling. But it's not doodling, it's writing. And I can't read it unless I hold it up to a mirror. And even then it doesn't make any sense because it's not in English. What language? I don't know. It looks like English letters, but the words aren't English words. They're rearranged, maybe? Anagrammed? I can't tell. Has he been different with the kids? A long pause. Maya won't sit on his lap anymore. She used to climb on him the second he walked in the door. Now she won't. She doesn't say why. She just goes to the other side of the room. Children know. That's not superstition. That's not folklore. That's the observational acuity of a developing brain that hasn't yet learned to override its instincts with politeness. Maya was 3 years old, and she could feel what the rest of us were arguing ourselves out of feeling. I think he went back, Janelle said. I think he's been going back on Sundays when I'm not there. His boots have that basement smell, concrete and damp. Alone? Alone. I went cold. Different the way left is different from right. The ones who come back different. They always go alone. I went to Claudette. I went to her not as a co-worker but as a person whose family was in trouble. And I told her everything. The group visit, the mirrored labels, the door, Thomas's vision, Derek's behavior since. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "How many times has he gone back alone?" Janelle thinks at least twice, maybe more. Does he know you're here? No. Good, listen to me. The basement on Sundays is a reflection, not a metaphor. A literal spatial reflection of the building above it. Everything reversed. Left becomes right. Text becomes mirrored. Layout becomes inverted. It's the hospital, but wrong. And the people in it, the reflections, they're us. They're the reversed versions of everyone who works in this building, living their mirrored lives in the space below. And they want out. Out how? Through the elevator. The elevator is the axis, the mirror's edge. On Sundays, when the elevator descends, it crosses from our side to theirs. If one person rides alone, the reflection can step into the elevator on the other side and ride up. And the original, the real person, stays below. You're saying they swap. I'm saying the mirror wants to equalize. One side reflects the other. If a reflection gets out, the original takes its place. An exchange, balanced, symmetrical. But we went as a group, and nothing happened. Because 4 reflections can't replace 4 originals simultaneously. The elevator can only transit one body at a time across the axis. A group is safe because the math doesn't work. But one person alone in the elevator on a Sunday. That's a clean exchange. 1 for 1. Derek's been going alone. Yes. Has he already been? I don't know. That's the problem, Casey. You can't tell from the outside. The reflection has all the same memories, the same face, the same voice. The only differences are structural. handedness, spatial orientation, the small reversals that most people never notice. You'd have to know the original intimately. You'd have to be watching for the change. Maya won't sit on his lap. Claudette nodded slowly. Children see the reversal. They can't articulate it, but they feel it. The geometry of a person's face is slightly different in reflection. The dominant side becomes the recessive side. The micro-expressions shift. Adults compensate. Children don't. So what do? You stop him from going back. If he hasn't been exchanged yet, you stop him and the reflections lose their opportunity. If he has been exchanged, she paused. If he has, then the real Derek is in the reflection, in the B level that exists on Sundays, and he's living a mirrored life in a mirrored hospital, and he thinks he's the real one because the reflection always thinks it's real. Can he be brought back? I don't know. Nobody's ever tried. The knowledge I have came from people who learn to avoid, not people who learn to retrieve. I'm going to tell you about the Sunday, the second Sunday, April 26th, the one where 3 of us went in and 2 came back. I planned it with Janelle and Tomas, not Derek. We didn't tell Derek because we didn't know which Derek we'd be telling, the original or the reflection. And the plan depended on the answer. The plan was simple, because complicated plans require confidence and we had none. We were going to ride the elevator to B level on Sunday, as a group. We were going to find the door in the mechanical plant, the door that shouldn't exist, and we were going to open it and see what was on the other side. If the reflected hospital was there, and if reflected people were in it, we would look for reflected Derek. And if we found him, we would know that the real Derek was down there and the thing upstairs was the copy. And then, this was the part we couldn't plan. We would try to bring him back. Tomas asked the question none of us wanted to ask. What happens to the other one, the reflection? If we bring the real Derek back, does the reflection go down? I don't know, I said. Because the reflection thinks it's real. It has his memories, it loves Janelle, it loves the kids. If we pull the real Derek out and push the reflection back, we're condemning someone who thinks they're a person. It's not a person. How do you know? Because Claudette said so? What if the reflection is just as real as the original and the only difference is which side of the mirror they started on? This is the thing I cannot resolve. This is the thing that kept me awake the night before and keeps me awake now. Thomas was right. The reflection wasn't a monster. The reflection was Derek. A Derek with the scar on the wrong side and the handedness reversed and the handwriting mirrored. A Derek who loved his wife and his kids and did the dishes and coached t-ball. The same man reflected. And choosing between them wasn't choosing between real and fake. It was choosing between original and copy when the copy was indistinguishable from the original to everyone except a 3-year-old girl who wouldn't sit on his lap. We went anyway. The 3 of us. Sunday, April 26th, 2 p.m. Derek was home with the kids. Janelle had told him she was going to my apartment and he'd said okay, and kissed her. And the kiss was the same as always, except Janelle told me later that he'd leaned in from the wrong side. The elevator, the B button, the slow descent, the thickened time, the stretched distance, the doors opening on B level, the hallway that was the same and wrong, the fluorescent lights with the dead tubes on the reversed side. We walked to the mechanical plant, through the double doors. The door was there. The impossible door in the south wall. Open 2 inches. Warm light spilling through the gap. Tomas looked at me. Janelle looked at me. I was the one who'd brought us here. I was the one who'd believed Claudette. I was the one who'd decided that my sister's husband needed saving. The weight of that decision was on me, and I felt it and I pushed the door open. The reflected hospital was on the other side. Not a basement, not a dark mirror world, a fully lit, fully functioning, completely ordinary hospital hallway. Same tile, same walls, same handrails, same fire extinguisher cases, same everything. Except the exit signs read TIXE, and the room numbers were backwards, and the clock on the wall ran counterclockwise with the numbers mirrored, and it was ticking, and the ticking was real, and the hallway was real, and I could hear voices and footsteps and the beep of monitors and all the sounds of a working hospital in the early afternoon. And people. Staff in scrubs, patients in gowns, visitors in street clothes, moving through the hallway going about their Sunday. They looked normal. They looked completely, unremarkably normal, except for the gate. That mirrored gate Thomas had described, the left-right reversal that was almost invisible unless you were watching for it, and we were watching for it, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. And the hallway full of people became a hallway full of wrongness, of reflections walking in a world that was theirs, but looked like ours. None of them looked at us. They passed within feet of the open door and they didn't glance at it. Like the door wasn't there for them, like we were invisible, or like the gap between our world and theirs was permeable from one direction only. "Derek," Janelle said, barely a whisper. We looked down the hallway, and there, about 30 feet from the door, standing at what would have been the nurse's station on the first floor of our hospital, was Derek. He was in his facilities uniform. He was holding a clipboard. He was talking to a woman in scrubs. Reflected Claudette, I realized. Same face, same build, scar on the wrong side. And he was gesturing with his left hand. Derek is right-handed. This Derek was left-handed. "That's the reflection," Tomas said. "If that's the reflection down here, then the one upstairs is—" "The original," I said. "The original is upstairs. He hasn't been swapped." "Then what's this one?" I didn't know. I didn't know, and I still don't know. Was this the reflection that had always existed? The mirrored Derek that had been living his mirrored life in the mirrored basement since? Since when? Since Derek started working at the hospital? Since Derek was born? Since the hospital was built? Was there a reflected version of every person in the building living a parallel life one floor down? And the Sunday elevator was simply the seam where the two layers touched? The reflected Derek looked up from his clipboard. He looked at the door. He looked at us. He saw us. His face did something I will never forget. It did the thing that faces do when they see something they've been waiting for. Not surprise, not fear, but arrival. The expression of a person who has been standing at a window watching for a car and the car has finally turned into the driveway. He started walking toward us. "Close the door," Tomas said. But Janelle didn't move. She was looking at reflected Derek, and reflected Derek was looking at her. And I could see on my sister's face the thing that made this impossible, the thing that broke every clean line between right and wrong. She recognized him. Not as a fake, not as a copy, as Derek. A different Derek, but Derek. And he was walking toward her with love on his face, real love, reflected love. The love of a man for a woman he'd married in the version of reality where left was right and right was left. "Janelle," I said. "Janelle, we need to close the door." "He looks so lonely," she said. He was 10 feet from the door. His mouth was moving. He was saying her name. I could see the shape of it on his lips, the J, the Nell. But no sound was crossing the threshold. The door was a gap in space, not in air. Light crossed. Sound didn't. He reached the door. He stood on the other side, separated from us by the width of the frame, and he put his left hand flat against the air where the doorway was, and his hand stopped. Like he was pressing against glass. He couldn't cross. The door opened from our side only. The permeability went one direction. Unless someone held the door for him. I understood it then. The elevator wasn't the exchange mechanism. The elevator was just the route to B level. The door was the exchange mechanism, the impossible door in the south wall of the mechanical plant. And the door opened from our side, which meant the reflections couldn't cross on their own. They needed someone on our side to open it and hold it and, what? Invite them through? Step aside? Trade places? The reflected Derek pressed both hands against the invisible barrier. His face was desperate now, not monstrous, not predatory, desperate. The desperation of a real person trapped in a real place, asking for help. His eyes were wet. "Janelle, let me through," he mouthed. No sound, but we could all read it. "Janelle, please." My sister put her hand up. She pressed it against the barrier from our side, palm to palm with the reflected Derek. And I saw the barrier flex. Not physically, not visually, but in some other sense, some structural sense, like a wall taking a load it wasn't designed for. "Don't," Tomas said. "He's my husband," Janelle said. "He's not. The one upstairs is your husband. This is the reflection." "How do you know? How does anyone know which one is real and which one is the reflection? What if this one is real and the one upstairs is the copy and the original Derek got swapped weeks ago and this is him, stuck down here waiting for someone to come get him?" I couldn't answer that. I couldn't answer it because it was the exact question I'd been unable to answer since Claudette first told me about Deidre. How do you know? What evidence distinguishes an original from a perfect reflection? If the only differences are handedness, spatial orientation, and the instinctive unease of a 3-year-old, is that enough to condemn a conscious being to a mirrored basement forever? Derek, reflected Derek, was crying, silently, on the other side of a boundary that had no sound, his hands pressed flat against nothing, his mouth making shapes that were names, that were pleas, that were, "I love you," mirrored but recognizable, the same words reversed. And then Janelle pushed. She pushed against the barrier with both hands, and I felt it give. Not break, not shatter, but soften, like pushing against a membrane. And the reflected Derek's hands came through, his fingers emerging into our air, our space, and his hands were warm and real and alive, and he grabbed Janelle's wrists, and she grabbed his, and they pulled. Thomas tackled Janelle, full body. He hit her from the side, and they went down on the concrete floor of the mechanical plant. And the reflected Derek's hands snapped back across the barrier, and the membrane rehardened, and I slammed the door shut. The door closed. The wall was a wall. Janelle screamed, not in fear, in rage. She screamed at Tomas. She screamed at me. She screamed with the fury of a woman who had just had something taken from her, or had been prevented from taking something she wanted, which felt identical from the inside. That was Derek. That was Derek, and you pulled me away from him. That was the reflection, Janelle. The real Derek is upstairs. You don't know that. You don't know which one is real. Nobody knows. She was on the floor. Thomas was holding her. She was sobbing with a violence that I had never seen from my sister, who is composed, who is the strong one, who holds it together. She was broken on the floor of a mirrored basement, and I had done this to her, and Tomas had done this to her, and we did it because we thought we were saving her, and we might have been wrong. We might have been wrong. We rode the elevator back up, the three of us. Janelle silent, her face blank, a composure that was worse than the screaming. Tomas holding his shoulder where he'd hit the concrete, me holding nothing, feeling nothing, thinking everything. We walked out of the East Wing. Janelle got in her car. She drove home to Derek. To the Derek who was upstairs, the original or the reflection, the right-handed or the left-handed, the real or the mirrored. Tomas and I stood in the parking lot. "Did we do the right thing?" he asked. "I don't know. The one down there was crying. He knew her name. He wanted to come home. I know. And the one upstairs is reading cereal boxes in the mirror and writing backwards, and his 3-year-old won't sit on his lap. I know. Casey, what if we left the real one down there? I didn't answer. We stood in the parking lot of Crittenden County Memorial Hospital on a Sunday afternoon in April, and the sun was shining and the parking lot was full of cars and people were coming and going, and the building was a building, and underneath it was a mirror, and in the mirror was a man who looked like my brother-in-law, pressing his hands against a boundary that I had closed. That was 2 months ago. Derek is upstairs. The upstairs Derek. He is at home with Janelle and Deshawn and Maya. He goes to work. He coaches t-ball. He comes to Sunday dinner. He does the dishes. He writes with his right hand. He's always written with his right hand. I've watched him, carefully, for weeks. He is right-handed and his scar's on the correct side, and his gait is normal and his micro-expressions are normal, and by every metric I can identify, he is the original Derek. Maya still won't sit on his lap. I don't know what Maya sees. I don't know if a 3-year-old's instinct is more reliable than an adult's observation. I don't know if Maya is detecting a genuine reversal that is too subtle for the rest of us. Or if Maya is 3 and 3-year-olds go through phases and sometimes they don't want to sit on Daddy's lap, and it doesn't mean Daddy is a reflection from a mirrored dimension. I don't know. Janelle doesn't speak to me. Not about this. She speaks to me about normal things. The kids, our mother, schedules, logistics. But the conversation we need to have, the conversation about the door and the man on the other side, and whether we saved her from a mistake or made one. That conversation has not happened, and I don't think it will. She watches Derek. I've seen her watching him. At dinner across the table, her eyes tracking his hands, his gestures, the side he tilts his head when he's listening. She's looking for the reversal. She's looking for the proof that the man in her house is or isn't the man she married. And she's not finding it. And the not finding is its own kind of hell. Because the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, and she knows that. And she lives in that uncertainty every day. Tomas transferred to a hospital in Little Rock. He didn't tell me he was leaving. I found out from the schedule. He texted me once, a week after he left. I still see his face. The one behind the door. I think about him every day. I didn't reply because I didn't know what to say that wouldn't make it worse. The elevator still runs on Sundays. The maintenance sign still goes up. The stairwell is still padlocked. Claudette still works the second floor. The system of avoidance is intact. The mirror is contained. And underneath the building, 1 floor down, in a hallway that doesn't exist Monday through Saturday, there is a version of my brother-in-law pressing his hands against a barrier and saying my sister's name. Or there isn't. Because maybe Claudette is wrong. Maybe the reflections aren't conscious. Maybe the thing I saw was an optical phenomenon, a perceptual artifact. And the tears on reflected Derek's face were just light bending through a dimensional fold that my brain interpreted as grief, because brains are narrative machines, and grief is a story I know how to tell. But Maya won't sit on his lap. That's the part I can't get past. Everything else I can rationalize. The mirrored labels. Maybe Derek rewrote them and misremembered. The door. Maybe it was always there and we'd never noticed. The reflected hospital. Maybe a shared hallucination triggered by expectation and adrenaline. I can construct an explanation for every piece of evidence because that's what rational adults do. We build explanations the way engineers build bridges, one beam at a time, until the span holds and we can walk across it without looking down. But a 3-year-old girl who used to leap into her father's arms now goes to the other side of the room when he enters it, and she can't explain why, and I can't explain it away. I went back to B level one more time. On a Wednesday, not a Sunday. I took the elevator down and walked the hallway and went to the mechanical plant and looked at the south wall. No door. Solid concrete. The wall was a wall on a Wednesday. I put my hand against it. It was cold. It was concrete. It was nothing. But I leaned close and I pressed my ear to the surface and I listened. And in the deep silence of a basement beneath a hospital in eastern Arkansas, through 6 inches of poured concrete and 52 years of settled foundation, I heard something. Knocking, faint, rhythmic, coming from behind the wall, from a space that doesn't exist on Wednesdays. 3 knocks, a pause. 3 knocks, a pause. The same pattern over and over. The same knock as the one that came to room 6 of the Dustline Motor Lodge in a different story, on a different night. A measured, even knock from someone who has practiced knocking until the gesture is perfect. No, that's not right. That's a different story. That's not my story. My story is about a hospital in Arkansas and a man behind a wall and a 3-year-old girl who knows something the rest of us can't prove. But the knocking was real. And it didn't stop when I pulled my ear away. And it didn't stop when I walked back down the hallway. And it didn't stop when I got in the elevator and rode up to the first floor where the living, unreversed, unmirrored world was waiting for me in all its ordinary, unverifiable, possibly wrong reality. The knocking was still there when I drove home. It's still there now. 3 knocks, a pause. 3 knocks. From the left side. Always from the left. And I keep thinking about the question Thomas asked me in the parking lot. Did we do the right thing? And I keep arriving at the same answer, which is the answer this story has been about all along. The answer that isn't an answer. I don't know. Nobody does. That's the rule, the real rule. The one that isn't on any laminated sheet, the one that nobody types up and puts in a locker. The rule that governs the elevator to B-level on Sundays. And the rule that governs every choice you've ever made about the people you love. You will never know for certain which version is real. You will choose anyway. And you will live in the house you've built with that choice. And you will watch the people in it. And you will look for the reversal. And you will not find it. And the not finding will be the thing you carry every day for as long as the mirror holds. The elevator goes to B-level. On Sundays, B-level is different. Don't go alone. And if you go with people, if you go with the people you love, the people whose hands and faces and voices you think you know, be ready for the possibility that knowing isn't enough, that love isn't verification, that the person beside you is the person beside you, and the person in the mirror is also the person beside you. And the only thing separating them is a wall that exists 6 days out of 7. And on the 7th day, the wall becomes a door, and the door opens from your side, and the choice is yours. I chose to close it. I'll never know if I was right. 3 knocks, a pause. From the left side. Always from the left.